Hey, what's up everybody? It is Uncle Matt here. Marvel Monday. We are rolling on. They continue on. Although this is probably the last Marvel Monday for the foreseeable future because I finally caught up all the way on all the Marvel movies and things that I've missed so far by finishing up by watching Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania tonight on Disney+. Jess and I sat down and watched it. So today I'm going to give you my quick thoughts, a quick little review of the film. And then I thought now that I'm fully caught up on everything MCU, this is a good time to give like a full MCU State of the Union address, my thoughts on what's going on with the MCU, what they should do moving forward, maybe to like, spoiler alert, to get back on track because I think they've kind of lost the plot a little bit. But yeah, it's a good time to talk MCU, wrap things up for where we're at currently with the releases. We've got the Marvels coming out later this summer, so we'll have a little break from MCU stuff till that comes out, but I feel like a good time to just chat all things Marvel, MCU specifically. So, we watched Ant-Man Wasp Quantumania. Spoiler alert, spoiler alert, spoiler alert. I'm not even going to try to like sugarcoat it. Like, I don't know how I can talk about the movie without spoiling things. I guess if I was going to give a non-spoiler review before we get going, I would say I didn't think it was as bad as the reviews suggested. Like, I think it's like currently the worst reviewed Marvel movie on Rotten Tomatoes, and it's like definitely not as bad as Eternals, definitely not as bad as Thor: The Dark World, probably better than like Iron Man 3, probably better than, I probably liked it better than I liked Black Widow. I'm trying to think of like some of the other ones that I had. I just did a ranking video last week. I should remember what I had ranked low, but I didn't think it was that bad. It's not the worst Marvel movie. It's not as good as the first two Ant-Man movies, and we'll get into like some of the details as we go, but I gave it 2 stars on Letterboxd. That was my official rating and score that I gave it. I thought that was about appropriate because it was fine. It wasn't bad. It was an enjoyable watch, but it just was not quite as good. So let's go again. Spoiler alert, spoiler alert, spoiler alert. I'm going to start getting into the actual movie itself now. What I liked, what I didn't like about it, what I thought could have been better. And right out of the gates, the number one thing I thought hurt this movie is it just didn't have anywhere near the humor and the kind of energy and spirit of the first 2 Ant-Man movies. Like, they were kind of like, I'd almost describe them as Guardians Light in the way they used humor and kind of like fun frivolity to like spice the movie up. And I think part of that, I was like, I actually listened to a podcast a couple weeks ago that talked about Ant-Man, but I didn't hear any spoilers from it. But one of the things they mentioned that, well, I guess it was sort of a spoiler, but didn't really give anything away, was the fact that like this movie missed the presence of Michael Pena, of T.I., of Dave Demelshan, who's actually in it, but he's in it in a different role. Like the side characters that revolved around Scott Lang that brought the comic relief, like Michael Pena especially, his character doing like the hilarious recaps of everything that's happened in the Ant-Man universe. Definitely missed that. Definitely missed the humor, because like when they try to do humor in this movie, a lot of times it almost fell flat. Like, I don't know, it's hard to describe, but it just, the humor was lacking. It wasn't there the way it was before. And I thought like, I don't know what it was, but like the characters didn't seem to have the same chemistry that they had in previous Ant-Man movies. Like the Wasp and Paul Rudd didn't seem to click the way they had. The new actress they cast to play Cassie Lang, Scott Lang, Ant-Man's daughter, I thought she was one of the worst parts of the movie because she was very like stiff. She didn't really click and fit in with the other characters the way, you know, she should have. She had this one just like terrible scene with her and MODOK where like they're talking about don't be a dick, and it was like the worst line reading I've ever seen in like a movie. Like how somebody watched that and was like, this is good, put it in the movie. And like she was just very stiff. Like, you know, it's hard to jump into these movies, I'm sure, as a performer, as an actor, to kind of find the rhythm, find the sort of way to perform these movies as if like being a character that can grow and shrink and everything is a real thing that could happen. So I'm sure it's not an easy thing to do, but she just did not seem to click well, which is crazy that like they've recast that character 3 times. There's the young girl who played it in the first 2 Ant-Man. Then when they aged her up after Endgame, there was a new actress in that movie, and then this is the 3rd different person that was casted to play Cassie Lang. And it's like, if you're gonna recast it, get it right. And I don't think they got it right at all. I think she was very stiff, and she might grow into the role. She might get better in the future because she's certainly probably coming back in the future. You know, everybody pretty much thinks there's a Young Avengers movie on the way at some point in time, and so she would naturally probably be a part of that. But I don't know, she didn't work for me. She just seemed like to not click in with the rest of the cast. It felt like everybody was like, I don't know if this was still filmed. Like, I keep thinking this with some of the movies I've seen recently. It's like, was this still filmed like under COVID regulations where like nobody could be in the room together and they were filming all their scenes by themselves? Because like, it just felt like everybody was in like 7 different movies. Like Michael Douglas was just kind of like on an island. Michelle Pfeiffer was really weird. Like, nobody really seemed to have any chemistry with each other in this movie, which is weird because outside of the girl who played Cassie Lang, all these people have been in these movies together for, you know, 2 Ant-Man movies, Avengers movies and such. So it was very bizarre just how like everybody felt like a little disconnected and weren't like clicking and having the chemistry they seemed to have in previous movies before. But 2 biggest issues with the movie outside of like the weird chemistry stuff that was going on is way too much CGI, probably about 30 to 40 minutes too long, that's probably in a nutshell the 2 biggest things that are wrong with all the Marvel movies right now. It's just too much CGI, too much stuff, period. Like, cut 40 minutes out of this movie. Like, you could have cut all the extra, I don't know, there's plenty of stuff you could have cut from this movie and made it like a hour 20, hour 30 tops, and it'd been a perfectly fine movie. But the CGI thing's a big problem. Like, the initial reviews are starting to come out from Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, the new Indiana Jones movie that's coming out later this month, or later next month. And that's the 2 things people are already criticizing about it, is that there's too much CGI and that it's too long. It's like, I don't know what the deal is with this. I don't know why movies have gotten so long. I don't know why we've gotten so reliant on CGI. I can assume with CGI, it's a budget thing where it's cheaper to make CGI scenes than it is practical set things. But even in the Ant-Man movies, the first 2, there's a lot of CGI in them because there's people that are shrinking, there's people that are growing, there's shrinking items, there's shrinking buildings. There's a lot of CGI involved, but they did a good job of blending the CGI in with shots that they shot in like the actual real world. Like, the whole first 2 movies are pretty much set in San Francisco. This one's completely set in the quantum realm, so it's like 95% shot on green screens with like nothing around it. Darren Cross, Yellow Jacket, the villain for the first movie, he returns as a updated version of MODOK, a character from the comics. Google pictures of him. It's the worst CGI you'll ever see. It's terrible. He just looks awful. He's actually kind of funny. The whole arc with him is kind of weird and kind of funny and kind of quirky, but like the CGI of that character is just so laughably bad that it just like ruins everything else that he has in the movie. And the other thing is, like, I think one of the reasons probably people were down on this movie a little bit was they probably thought it was going to do more to set up the big stuff that's potentially coming in the MCU with all the multiversal stuff, but it didn't really do that. You know, you're obviously getting a lot of Kang. You're getting a tease of what Kang is, what Kang's going to be, how that is going to play into the rest of the MCU, but it's more self-contained. There's not as much of a tease of the future as maybe you thought you were going to get when you saw this movie. Weirdly also, though, like, Jonathan Majors as Kang in this movie, not that good. Like, early in the movie, he seemed very interesting, and then he just kind of, like, tailed off and kind of, like, just became very one-note, very one-dimensional. He was 100 times better as the Kang variant, He Who Remains, in Loki than he was in this. Like, it was very, very bizarre how, like, bland and lack of energy he was through a lot of the movie and stuff like that. So I feel like I'm saying very negative on it after I said I thought it was better than most people thought it was. I believe, like I said, I think it's the lowest rated Marvel movie on Rotten Tomatoes, and it's certainly not in the top tier, but it's not as that bad. So whatever, I don't know. I think I'm losing my train of thought while I'm just rambling on about this, but it was fine. It was good. I thought Kang should have been better. Like, like, John Majors was so much better as Kang in Loki when he was playing the Kang variant, He Who Remains, than he was as Kang in this actual movie. It's bizarre how that works, but obviously that's a big question mark moving forward because he's got, you know, some in sports what you would call off the field issues he's dealing with. But I mean, it's the perfect actor to, like, you know, if you got to get rid of him, it's Kang. Yeah, there's a million different versions of Kang, so you can easily just bring in a new actor and be like, this is the variant, this is blah blah blah, whatever, and just replace Jonathan Majors. Which, after seeing this movie, I was really worried that, like, he was gonna be awesome in this movie, like kind of like how he was in Loki, and I was gonna be like, oh, it's gonna suck to replace him. But he was like just okay in this movie. So get rid of him, move on, bring in an actor who can keep their head on a swivel and do things the right way. Whew. But yeah, now that I've watched this, we just seem to be going on the wrong path with the MCU. Like I said, I want to give a kind of quick state of the union of the MCU moving forward. And if I could give Kevin Feige, if you're watching this, Kevin Feige, I've got a few pieces of advice for you. Number one, shorten the movies. Shorten the TV shows. The TV shows go too long. The movies run too long. Ditch the CGI. Find a way to do more practical effects, more real shots, more real places, more real sets. Get out of the CGI thing. This whole movie looked like it was shot on a green screen in like a warehouse in Atlanta. Do a little bit more realism. Like if like the last act of this movie had been in the quantum realm and everything, that would have been better. Like if it started with like, it almost would like, okay, so here's what happens. All the Ant-Man characters, 5 minutes of the movie, get sucked into the quantum realm, and the whole movie is about them, like, you know, encountering Kang and trying to get out. It would almost have been better if like some of them had got sucked in and some of them hadn't, and then there was like some who were in the real world trying to find a way to get to the ones that were in there. And you had more real world stuff that would let you bring back in Michael Pena and some of those characters who exist in the real world. But yeah, that's what I'm saying. Less CGI. More practical effects, more real shots, more real locations, less CGI, shorter movies, shorter TV shows. And I think the other thing is, like, obviously post Avengers Endgame, resetting of the MCU with most of the first wave of characters kind of moving on, those actors moving on, they kind of have to set the table again. They have to bring new people in. But I think one of the problems right now is they're setting up too much stuff, but there's no next piece of the puzzle with that. Like, so we got this Ant-Man movie. We know obviously Kang's coming back. But they set up this like expansion of the Ant-Man universe with Cassie now being a superhero, more of the Wasp as a superhero, but like we don't know when Ant-Man's coming back. We can presume he's coming back in the Avengers movies, Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars, but we don't know that. Whereas like when the early wave of Marvel was coming out, you know, you had Iron Man, and then you pretty much quickly after that were like Iron Man 2's on the way, and then he's going to be in Avengers, and then there's going to be Iron Man 3. Captain America, he's here in the first Avenger, but next up, Avengers. Then, oh, big announcement, we got Civil War. They've thrown too many characters into the mix, and it's hard to commit to them because you don't know when or if you're going to see them again. Shang-Chi is a great example of this. Shang-Chi, in most people's opinion, has been one of the more popular movies in like this new wave of Marvel movies. I thought it was fine. Once again, way too much CGI. If it had been like a real legit, like cool martial arts fighting scenes and not like weird CGI scene of people climbing up a building and fighting, and so like, it would have been a lot better for me, but that's a minor nitpick. But of the new characters they've introduced, Shang-Chi might be the best one, and that's been like 2 years ago now, and there's no telling when he's next going to show up. They've said there's going to be a Shang-Chi sequel, but it's not on their currently announced schedule. There's no tease of him showing up in any other of the movies or TV shows yet. So if you went and saw Shang-Chi and you were like, this is awesome, I really love this character, I can't wait to see him again, you're just left in the wilderness now for 2 years and possibly more, because they've announced stuff through, I believe, 2025, 2026 at this point, and none of them are officially the Shang-Chi sequel. Black Panther, I just watched that. You know, they basically reset the Black Panther universe with what they had to do with the passing of Chadwick Boseman, but don't know when we're going to see, you know, that universe again. There's supposedly a Wakanda TV show coming, but it's not on the docket. It's not been scheduled. I think they need to stop just like throwing stuff out there and hoping something sticks, and like focus in and go, these are the characters we want to present. These are how we want to present them. This is what we're going to do. You know, they basically went with 5 characters the first kind of wave. They went Iron Man, Thor, Black Widow, Captain America. Didn't all get solo movies. Some of them were just in Avengers. Some of them popped up in other people's movies. Focused on those characters to build the universe around them. Now we've got like 20 movies that have all introduced new things, and we have no idea when the next wave of these people are. Spider-Man's out there. We don't know when the next Spider-Man movie is. We got an awesome movie in No Way Home, and we don't know when he's coming again. So like, I wanted to look at the upcoming slate of movies and TV shows, and some of these I would cancel. Some of these I'd get rid of. I think they're just doing too much. Like I said, they need to streamline. They need to focus in. Figure out who the characters that matter. Figure who's going to be the key characters. What are the key stories they want to tell. They don't need a bajillion million different shows and movies. Now, some of this could be, you know, I think a lot of the TV show stuff was Disney Plus. They needed content for that, so Disney probably forced Kevin Feige's hand a little bit. Like, we need shows. Give us TV for Disney Plus, and they kind of had to do some stuff there, but they're definitely scaling back a little bit on Disney Plus now. So, I mean, Disney's scaling back a lot of stuff. So, don't make the TV shows if you don't have to. So, here's what's announced. Where are we at? Movie-wise, here's what's coming up. We're in phase 5. Like, I don't know what the differential between phase 4 and phase 5 was. There's not a clear break point. But Black Panther Wakanda Forever was the end of that. Ant-Man Quantumania was the beginning of the next phase. I don't know why. Doesn't make much sense. But we've got the Marvels coming in November. We've got Captain America New World Order coming May of next year. Thunderbolts July of next year. Blade September of next year. Which also, in Hollywood, there's a writer's strike right now. So how any of that affects all this, it might be a great opportunity with the writers being on strike, if that slows down the production on stuff, for Feige and co to kind of look at everything and go, do we need to condense some of this? Do we need to make all this stuff? Do we need to kind of scale back? Maybe that'll happen. All three of those I think are fine. Captain America New World Order, they probably should have gone straight to that as a movie as opposed to doing the Falcon Winter Soldier show to set up the new Captain America. Thunderbolts will be really good. It's kind of bringing some things together that they've been setting up. Blade, fine. Blade has a good history. Like the three Blade movies were whatever. Marshall Ali, I'm sure, will be really good in this. In Phase 6, what they have announced so far, and there's definitely going to be more movies announced in this, because typically, if you look at the calendars, they typically put out 3 to 4 movies a year. And in Phase 6, we've only got 4 movies total. November 2024, we've got Deadpool 3. February 2025, we've got Fantastic Four. May 2025, we've got Avengers: The Kang Dynasty. And then a whole year later, May 1st, 2026, we've got Avengers: Secret Wars. So between the release of Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars, there's definitely going to be more Marvel movies. What are they going to be? We don't know. Once again, Armor Wars, that's a movie that's been announced but isn't on the schedule. And the Shang-Chi sequel has been announced, but it's not on the schedule, so those could possibly go somewhere. The director of the Shang-Chi movie is also directing Avengers: Kang Dynasty, so that kind of connects the dots there that, you know, there's going to be some Shang-Chi in there. TV shows they got coming up. This is where I really think they need to really condense and kind of focus in. So we got Secret Invasion. That's coming next month. That's already done. It's going to happen. Loki's coming out later this year. That's done. It's been filmed. It's already happening. Echo, I believe they've announced coming later this year. It's filmed, already happening. I would have probably scrapped that one, though. I don't know why we need an Echo TV show. Great character, interesting part of Hawkeye, but does she need a full show of her own? No. Can we put her in somewhere else and like get more of her there? Probably. What if? That one's fine, because it's just like, it's whatever. It's not like, it could, now that we're getting more into the multiverse, become more crucial to the actual story, but it was just kind of a fun, here's some weird things that happen in other universes type show. Ironheart, after seeing Ironheart in Black Panther Wakanda Forever, she was perfectly fine in there. I do not want to watch a whole TV show about her. They've got the Armor Wars movie, integrate her into that, put her and Rhodey together as like a team, set that whole thing up there, which she'll probably be in Armor Wars anyway, so even more reason we don't need a full Ironheart TV show. Agatha, Coven of Chaos, we do not need this show at all. She was a fun little quirky character for like half an episode of WandaVision. We do not need, it's listed as 9 episodes. We do not need 9 episodes of Agatha, Coven of Chaos. And this is one I'm the most torn about. Daredevil Born Again. Super excited for this. I'm really excited to see the MCU expand on and bring back Daredevil, especially the Charlie Cox version of Daredevil. He was really good on She-Hulk. He was really good in his little cameo in Spider-Man. But it's 18 episodes. We talk about these TV shows have not needed to go as long as they have, and like so far they've been like 6, 9, 8, 10 episodes. 18 episodes of Daredevil is completely insane. I'm terrified about that because I really want it to be good. I'm really excited for it. I really like the Charlie Cox version of the character and hope it works, but like 18 episodes is freaking insane. Last little thing I've said, and I've said this in multiple Marvel Monday videos recently, the fact that they still have not announced anything about what they're going to do with the X-Men property is absolutely insane. That's by far, traditionally, historically, Marvel's like a brand. Like, they've downplayed it in the comics over years because they didn't have the movie rights, but the fact that they now have the rights to X-Men, and outside of like a few name drops of the word mutant in a few shows, Namor calls himself a mutant in Black Panther Wakanda Forever. In Miss Marvel, there was hints that maybe she was a mutant. We obviously saw from a different universe Professor X and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, but in fact, I've read through everything that they've officially announced that's coming, and there's literally no X-Men project on the table. I gotta feel like it's one of the ones that's gonna come in there in that 2025 range, around the time between the 2 Avengers movies, Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars. It has to be somewhere in there, but like, if I was Marvel, as soon as I got control of the X-Men, I would have bum rushed putting the X-Men into theaters, because it's Marvel's most successful property. Just historically, like the X-Men movies were the first comic book movies of like the modern era that really worked. The X-Men were the most popular comic series throughout the 80s and 90s for Marvel, and somewhat through the 2000s as well. Like they only kind of got caught up by other properties in Marvel Comics when Marvel started pushing the characters they had the rights to in the films. It's insane to me that they haven't put the X-Men in yet. Like, I guess maybe the argument would be that it's like hard to figure out how to integrate them, because where have they been the whole time? Like, if there's, because Wolverine as a character, he was, depending on when his origin is set, depending on which version of his story is, he might have been around since Civil War time. So where has he been when like all these global alien invasions were happening? Why didn't he show up and start helping? Where were the X-Men when all these things were happening? That maybe is the argument of why they haven't made an integrated. I would guess maybe, if you know the story of Secret Wars from the comics, the modern Jonathan Hickman Secret Wars, it's basically like all the different multiversal planets were starting to crash into each other and destroy each other. Dr. Doom somehow got magical powers that let him reset everything into one conjoined universe, that he made a battle world that he was the god of. Heroes did all the stuff they do, saved it all, reset everything. There was a new main primary universe, and some of the things from different multiverses were kind of integrated into it, like Miles Morales, the Spider-Man of the Ultimate Universe, was brought into the mainstream Marvel Universe. So I assume Secret Wars in the film is going to be used to do a similar thing, to reset things they don't really want to use, add new things they do want to use. So like they'll maybe like reset the timeline, reset the history of the Marvel Universe to where the X-Men will have been there all along or something like that. I don't know. Obviously Fantastic Four is coming right before all that, so Fantastic Four can bring in Dr. Doom to set him up. Reed Richards was the first person in the comics who kind of started to detect the incursions that were happening in the multiverse, where the different universes were starting to crash into each other. So definitely Fantastic Four is going to be used to probably set some of that up. But like, I came up with an idea. This was a very simple idea that I came up with. Like, this is how you could have introduced the X-Men right out of the gates and explained why they just never popped out of the shadows during all these other cataclysmic events that have been happening on the Earth in the MCU timeline. So in the comics, X-Men, mutants, there's a big like racial allegory. I don't know if I use that word right. Allegory, metaphor, symbolism. Where basically mutants are persecuted for being mutants, because they're like, oh, people fear and hate what they don't understand, which never fully made sense to me, because like I never could completely understand why like mutants were specifically hated, but other superheroes weren't. Like Thor, they're like, Thor, awesome, that guy's cool. Gambit, burn him at the stake. Never fully made sense to me, but that is the tool you could use to explain why mutants haven't shown up in the MCU yet if they've already been there. You could do a story where in 60s, 70s, whatever the timeline would be, Professor Xavier, Magneto had seen the persecution that was happening to mutants. They weren't widespread yet, but they could see that. So Xavier started the school not to train mutants, not to teach them how to do, but to give them a safe haven, to teach them how to hide their abilities, to how to protect themselves. So they were in hiding because they'd been persecuted. Like you could say there was like government experiments all through like the 20s and the 30s and the 40s. And Xavier started this school up in Westchester, New York, to protect the mutants, to hide them, to keep them safe. And they'd stayed in the shadows all this time. They knew if they came out, scientists would capture them and study them, and people would hate them for being weird and different. But slowly, as we moved into the age of the Avengers, and people saw these Avengers doing things and started to think like, oh, people don't hate the Avengers. They're saving people. They're heroes. We could do that. Then the Sokovia Accords happened. It's like, no. Now they're striking down the Avengers. We don't want to do that. Let's just keep it hiding. Let's just stay where we are. Let's not get involved. Let's stay in the shadows. Blah, 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 blah. Endgame happens. A lot of the Avengers get wiped off the table. Tony Stark makes the ultimate sacrifice. And suddenly, the mutants start to think, there's a power vacuum here. There's a need for heroes. Tony Stark lit the way. He showed the torch. He sacrificed himself. It's time for us to step out of the shadows. You could have a young Cyclops be the first one to lead the way. He could be a student at the Xavier Institute who says, we can't be in hiding anymore. We have to do our job. We have to go out there. We have to start saving people. And you could integrate Wolverine, that he'd been around doing stuff in the shadows, moving around, changing names, changing identities, but that he'd always been there. And then the X-Men emerged from there. They've been in hiding because they knew they'd be persecuted. But post-Avengers Endgame, post the falling of the original Avengers, a need for new heroes to emerge, a new group of mutants step forward and say, we can't hide anymore. We have to come out. We have to be what we are. We're the X-Men. And that's how you introduce the X-Men. That's how you explain why they've been there the whole time and haven't necessarily done anything. Could it be a little clunky? Maybe. Hollywood writers, hopefully they get paid when the strike is all over. They can come in, they can fix this half-brained idea I've had. Great director can come in and turn it into an even better movie. I don't know. I think that's an easy explanation for how you could quickly integrate the X-Men, but I think they were holding off. They want to do like whatever the reset they're going to do with the multiversal stuff and Secret Wars and what's to come, and probably bring them in now. But I mean, it's just crazy that we're the Fox acquisition from Disney was 2, 3, 4 years ago, and we still don't know. There's still no announcement of a X-Men movie, and even like they announced pretty early on that they were going to reboot and update the X-Men 97 cartoon show for Disney Plus, and we still don't know when that's happening. That's maybe coming next year in 2024. I don't know. The fact that they haven't gotten any X-Men stuff off the ground is just insane. Like I said, Namor said he was a mutant. There's teases that Miss Marvel's a mutant. We saw Professor X, an alternate version of him in Doctor Strange: The Multiverse of Madness. And we know we're getting Deadpool, and we know we're getting Wolverine in Deadpool 3. I'm interested in that one. That's probably the one I'm most interested in the future of the MCU right now, just because how do they blend what they've done in the first 2 Deadpools into the existing MCU? Is that going to be like intentionally set on like the old X-Men universe planet, and we're going to get a tease that that's going to be brought into the multiverse? Or is Deadpool just going to be in the MCU or something like that? I don't know. I'm interested for that one, but I definitely think the X-Men should have been more fully integrated a lot quicker than they have been. I don't think things are as dour, as bad as they could be for MCU, and I'm not as sour on it as some people are, but they definitely are on a cold streak right now in terms of like haven't had a big just like knock it out of the park hit in a while. Like Spider-Man No Way Home, it's probably the last one, and I think a lot of people have soured on that even since it came out. I haven't. I still think it was awesome, great nostalgic thing, but once again, it's set up this whole new scenario where basically that was the movie that turned the MCU Peter Parker into the Spider-Man we know from the comics. The friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, the guy who knows with great power comes with great responsibility, the guy who's not using some weird Iron Man tech Spider-Man costume, who's just in his traditional Spider-Man suit. Teased Venom coming to the MCU, and yet we have no idea when we're going to see Spider-Man again. And some of that is there's a partnership between Sony and Marvel where Sony still controls the Spider-Man film rights, and they have to work things out with Marvel when he's going to show up. But we don't know when we're going to get Spider-Man again. Like, we should know when the next Spider-Man movie is coming out. Like, that's something we should know and be able to look forward to, because that kind of is what connects the movies. The connectivity of the MCU is what made it exciting in kind of the first wave, where it's like, you know, this movie's going to somewhat lead into this movie somewhat's going to lead into this movie. But now it feels like we've gone back to square one, where every movie kind of stands alone, does its own thing. And it's one thing to do that, but if you know what's going to come next, if you know what that's going to lead into, it helps. Like, and we don't know that right now. Like I said, just watch Ant-Man, Wasp, Quantumania. A lot of cool threads that were set up there, but we don't know where they're going. Young Avengers. Young Avengers have been teased galore post-Endgame, and there's no announcement of a Young Avengers movie, or when they might come together, or a TV show, or anything like that. That being said, 3 criticisms. 4. I got 4. My 4 pieces of advice for Kevin Feige to fix the MCU. Number 1, cut the CGI. Number 2, shorten the movies, shorten the TV shows. Number 3, get the X-Men in there. Get the X-Men in there. And number 4, streamline it. We don't need 50 different franchises. We need about 6 or 7 individual ones, and then have everybody come together for a big movie every once in a while. You're welcome. That's it for this week's Marvel Monday. I think I have an idea of what I might do going forward, because I've enjoyed, you know, I don't know if these are popular videos on the channel, but I enjoy getting to come on here, talk about movies that I've watched and ramble a little bit. I did a horror movie one a couple weeks ago where I watched Scream, Megan, and Knock at the Cabin Door, or Knock at the Cabin? I don't remember. I might just have the Monday series, because we're not going to do MCU Marvel Monday for a while, because we don't have another MCU movie till, I think I just said November, when the Marvels comes out. I might do movie Mondays. I might just every weekend either go to the theater, watch something on streaming, just watch something, do a quick movie review on Mondays. That might be what we do on Mondays moving forward. Who knows? We'll see. I like the idea of that. That might be something I do, which will obviously be a lot shorter than this one, because this one was kind of a rant, rave, ramble on the whole state of the MCU. Future movie Mondays, watch a movie, 5-6 minute review. Put it on the channel on Mondays. Is that what's going to happen? I don't know. I kind of do all this on a whim. You can find out if that's what happens by subscribing to the channel with the bell turned on for notifications. As always, thanks for watching. This was fun. I hope the MCU gets back to being fun sometime soon, because it has been a bummer lately. That was the other thing about this one. Like I said, didn't have the fun, energy, comedy, humor of the first two Ant-Mans. It's kind of been the staple of what's happened in recent MCU movies. Like I said, Black Panther didn't have it. It couldn't really, because of the situation. Didn't really have any humor. The Guardians movie still had humor, but the tone was very different than the first two Guardians. Bring back the fun. That's your 5th tip, Marvel. Bring back the fun. If you need more tips, you know where to find me. I'll be at that place that I'm always at. You can see me there. I'll see you there at Taco Bell.